This might not be a full episode, we'll just call this a half episode update. So yeah, running and driving, but on the highway on the way home, very familiar vibration that starts at around 80 miles an hour, which is both unnerving and familiar because very similar to these chassis, my gut feeling was like, oh, kind of feels like the pinion angle's off. And I thought to myself, independent rear suspension, pinion angle shouldn't matter, right? Well, no, it does. And I was wrong. Alright, so although this is independent rear, the pinion still has an angle, either up, or nose down, that this drive shaft needs to match. In short, the rule is equal but opposite. So the pinion angle in the rear and the pinion angle in the front from the transmission needs to be equal but opposite. So what does that mean? If this is -4 facing down, -4 degrees down, this needs to be +4 degrees up so that these two angles cancel out each other. So what's our problem? Well, it's a very big problem indeed. In this instance, I got 1.15 degrees up, so the nose of the diff is facing up. Two-piece drive shaft, without getting too complicated, you want this angle to be equal but opposite to the angle that this front drive shaft is facing. So consider this the extension of the output shaft. So whatever this angle's at needs to be equal but opposite to there. So typically on a solid rear axle car, there's 4 links or something similar that can adjust nose up, nose down of the rear diff. In this case, our rear diff is fixed. So what do? We have 2 other options to choose from. We can either lower or raise the center bearing. Same thing, we could either lower or raise the transmission to change the U-joint angles. In this case, before I disconnected everything, my front drive shaft measured 1.5 degrees facing up, which if you look at this is almost 180 opposite of where I need it to be. This shaft ideally needs to be facing downwards 1.15 degrees to cancel out the upwards facing rear diff. So, oh boy, how do we get this to go 180 the other way? It's tough to see, but let's just call this our front shaft of our 2-piece drive shaft. So right now the shaft is facing up. If we lower the transmission, it's only gonna keep facing up, and that's not gonna help us at all. We wanna go opposite. So there's one more place where we can change the U-joint angle. That's at the center bearing. So what we wanna do now is drop the center bearing so that we can get the front shaft to -1.15 degrees. So this drive shaft's got to face down. How are we going to do that? Well, not that simple. Initially I got my stud puller and I was going to pull those studs out, put a longer bolt, and I got these extra spacers. I was going to space the center bearing down, and this would have gotten us really close in the ballpark, except that's a press-in stud. It's not threaded on the other side. If we want that thing longer, that pretty much means knocking the stud out and then welding a nut so that it can accept bolts. Don't know if I want to do that quite yet. But yeah, this spacer is just about 30 mil, and just mocking up the position of the center bearing and measuring how many degrees the front shaft changes. We pretty much need to space down the center bearing 30 mil in order to get our angles correct. So yeah, that was a big kick in the dick that those studs are not threaded all the way through. Again, it's like a press-in stud, like a wheel stud. Not quite sure what I want to do yet. I got a stack of spacers. I don't want to leave too little thread engagement for that center bearing, but I got a stack of spacers. I'm going to space down the center bearing regardless because it needs it, and then road test for a while, and then make sure I'm on the right track that spacing down the center bearing will indeed reduce the driveline vibration. So yeah, not so simple. I'll have to think about this fix a little more, or a lot longer, all the above. But yeah, the importance of having your driveline angles correct. Yeah, any driveline vibration you absolutely want to take care of, because that vibration's got to go somewhere, right? And it'll go straight through the trans and all the way into the engine. And then on the other end, it'll go straight through the diff. Prolonged driveline vibration, you can cause serious damage to both the bearings, the gear set, bearings inside the trans, even potentially internal engine damage if that driveline vibration's severe enough or not taken care of, or left to vibrate for a long time. So yeah, just to recap, driveline vibration, especially at highway speeds, it starts to come in at 70 and then like it gets bad and at around 80, and you can hear a grumbling in the back of the car. Very typical of your driveline angles not being set correctly. So yeah, just a small update. Any swap, even if it's just a transmission swap, not always straightforward. Always expect issues to come up like this. But yeah, hopefully this helps you guys out in knowing what to prepare for if you're doing this swap. Questions, comments, leave it in the description below. Appreciate the support. Catch you guys next time.